Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and yeah, I'm going to be looking at the Vengeance T25. So it's a new American Tier 8 medium tank, and it's basically the T25 pilot from the PC, but with a snazzy paint job. So it's black with the patriotic eagle on the front and a grinning skull on the back. I think it looks quite cool, to be honest. You know, not particularly historically accurate, but I think it looks quite cool. And I've heard a few people say this is kind of like a down-armoured, more mobile Pershing, and yeah, you can definitely see where they're getting that from, and there are a lot of similarities between this and the Pershing, but it's basically an upgunned T23E3, which is why I've got this here. If you look at the hull there, it is basically the same hull. But it was, like I say, upgunned, and the turret was changed as well. So there's the T233 with the flat sort of Sherman-style gun mantle on what looks like basically a fatter Sherman turret. And there's the Vengeance turret, which obviously looks a lot more like the Pershing turret. So it kind of it fills that gap in between, which kind of makes sense. T233, T25 Vengeance, M26 Pershing. So it does make sense now. The 90mm looks a little bit unusual because it's not got a muzzle brake on the end. And I've got a feeling that there are going to be the odd person, you know, the kind of people that haven't bothered looking into this tank at all, may see it on the battlefield and think, oh, that looks like a 76mm, and then get caught out. I don't know. But it does look a lot more like the 76mm on the T233 than the 90mm from the Pershing, as you can see there. So that's why I've got both of these here. But yeah, there are similarities to the Pershing. But yeah, similarities to T23E3. So I'll try and cover some of them for you. Before I do though, it's in the store in a couple of packs at the minute. There is a mega pack. I think I mentioned yesterday it has got two M4E2E4, whichever one it is, the Ripper. It's basically got that one and the standard version as well. Too many numbers, can't remember them. But the bonuses on this are a 50% silver bonus, a 15% XP bonus, that's 1.5, but also a 50% crew XP bonus, which is quite nice, so it is a good crew trainer. And I think there's the ultimate bundle around 12,200, 12,500-ish in the store at the minute. There are a couple of cheaper ones coming over the next couple of weeks. And I've only had 10 games in this, but I like it. I do like it a lot. It's kind of got that slightly underpowered engine from the T233. However, obviously with it not having as much armor as the Pershing, it does give it a fairly decent power to weight ratio. But the terrain resistances are fantastic on it, and they do make up quite a bit for the slightly lower power to weight ratio. But let's get into it a little bit. It does put up to tier 10 as well, by the way. So engine power, 530 horsepower. Obviously a fully upgraded Pershing gets 704, something like that, and I'm going to be making comparisons to that because it is the kind of precursor to it, and I will be making comparisons obviously to T233 slightly, but yes, on this one you get a 90mm, 7.6 rounds a minute, which is slightly faster than either of the 90mm from the Pershing. They're 7.32. 192 millimeters of penetration on your standard rounds, with your standard sort of 90mm 240 average damage. Now, the fully upgraded Pershing gets 190 pen. The stock, or what would you call this, the sort of stock 90mm on it, gets 160 pen. You've got 243 on your APCR, which are premium rounds. Now, on the Pershing, fully upgraded, it's about 260 something, about 268, I think, for your premium. But on your stock 90mm, which is the same 90mm as on the T20, that is 243 pen for your premium. So the gun is kind of, ammo wise, it's kind of a mix between the two. And then you've got 45 and 320 for your HE. You've got a 2-second aiming time, which is better than the Pershing's 2.3, and your accuracy is 0.36, which again is slightly better than the Pershing. So gun wise, it's quite a nice 90mm. It's not got as much pen or as much rate of fire as some of the other tier 8 premiums. The Legion, I think, springs to mind. Has that got better rate of fire? The Liberté, etc. But it is still a nice gun, and it does have very, very good gun handling when I can start pressing the right buttons. And when I say gun handle, I mean the sort of dispersion values. You know, when you pop in and out, it's fantastic at snapshots, and the gun sights settle down very quickly after you've fired as well. So it is very good gun handling on this 90mm, I find. You've got a hull traverse of 43 degrees a second, which is again better than the Pershing's 38 fully upgraded, and you've got a turret traverse of 45, which again is better than the fully upgraded Pershing's 38. However, the Pershing does have you beaten on view range by 10 meters. This has got 390, which is still nothing to snub at, really. Now, supplies wise, your rounds are 255 for your armor piercing, 4,400 for your APCR, and 255 for your AG. I've just gone for boring, same old consumables. That's me personally. Obviously, you know, consumables swap and change as you see fit. Now, equipment wise, I've gone for the vertical stabilizer, the gun rammer, and I went for coated optics instead of vent. Now, I went for coated optics, got a fairly decent view range anyway at 390 meters. So extend that out a little bit because you do have weaker armor than the Pershing. So I thought, you know, outspotting the enemy would be more important in this, which is why I went for that. Now, what else have we got to do? Plays up to tier 10. I think we've covered that. And skills wise, well, I've actually stuck my T30 crew in, but not far off on that. I mean, you don't really need muffle shot on it. You can do if you want, but I would say camo, sixth sense, Brothers in Arms, situational awareness, and repairs are probably a good starting set for this tank. It's got fantastic terrain resistances, as I mentioned before, and good traverses, so I'd say that was probably a good starting base, and then sort of personalise and sort of, you know, after that, really. Personalise and specialise, that's what I was going to say, after those sort of base ones. But again, muffled shot probably won't be too bad on this one, as it is anyway. Now, your power to weight ratio, your 530 horsepower engine translates to 14.23 horsepower per ton, which is better than a stock Pershing, not as good as a fully upgraded one, which is about... Oh, actually, no. I've not got the top turret on yet, but I've got the top engine. It's about 17 point something, but that will drop with the more heavily armoured turret going on, but probably not by much. So it is slightly better. But this does have a higher top speed of 55 kilometers an hour and a fairly good reverse speed as well of 20 kilometers an hour. We do have a 20% chance of firing. It's a big old engine. It takes up most of the back of the tank. You've got a 90mm gun on the front with a very good gun mantle. I'll mention that one in the armour thing. But you've got 20 degrees of elevation, which is fine, that's workable, and you've got a very good 10 degrees or minus 10 degrees of gun depression, and that's what you want to be using in this one. When you're using the gun depression, that gun mantle becomes very solid. You kind of hide your commander's hatches as well, but I'll try and give you a few tips on to pen one of these if you are struggling or whatever, or if it's hold down, etc. Now, tracks. As you can see, quite a few gaps in the tracks, but look at those great terrain resistances. 0.5 for your roads, etc. 0.7 which is your medium, which is sort of your fields, your grass and that sort of thing, and then 1.5 for your sort of swamps and rivers. They are fantastic terrain resistances, and they really do make a difference to that power to weight ratio. You've got a slight sluggishness when you first set off, but then it picks up speed quite easily, and it can maintain it across almost any terrain. Very good terrain resistances. Personally, I really do like this tank. I think it's a cracking medium tank, really good. Turret on top, yep, there we go. Radio is in the overhang at the back of the turret. Ammunition is kind of in the same place that it is on the Pershing, but it's just a different setup. It's just laid out differently in that hexagonal block in the centre of the tank there. And then you've got the crew, they're in the same place, so driver, machine gunner, assistant driver, whatever you want to call them, down in the front of the hull, and then the gunner, loader and commander sat up in the turret. Now, armour wise, yeah, you can see that strip across the front of the gun mantle. It's quite solid. Your basic figures, they are less than the Pershing. The stock turret on a Pershing is 102 on the front, about 76 on the side. I think the hull is 102, 76, 51 front sides, rear on the Pershing. On this you get 76 on the front, you get 51 on the sides, and you get 38 on the rear. That's for the hull. And the turret is 76, 64, 64. So it's pretty much the same armour profile number wise as the T23E3, but as you can see, it's got a little surprise up its sleeve. So before we get onto those, concealment 0.27 and 0.21, slightly better than the Pershing, but I don't know whether that just accounts for the perma camo, but it is ever so slightly smaller. Now 1-20 is the rear part of the hull floor. The whole top deck falls into that, as do your tracks, and don't forget they do act as spaced armour. I know I say that a lot, but if you're a new viewer you might not have heard me say it before. 21-30 is the front part of the hull floor. Also the entire top of the turret. You've got a little step on the top of the turret there, as you can see as well, which is one of the places. Obviously if you're going for the commander's hatch you may hit that bit, and it's a fairly decent place to pen if these are sort of hull down, or if they're using that gun depression. But anyway, I digress. Again, top of the turret. 31-50, well that's the rear of the tank, and the sides, they fall into that category, which I think were with the 38 and 51, something like that. The underside of the overhang on the turret, and just that thin strip around the top edge of the turret at the back, the commander's hatches. And there's little bits, look, just behind the gun mantle, that little step at the front of the turret there as well, and the top of the machine gun port. I don't know if you can see, there we are, there you can see that now. Now I have as well lowered the brightness on here a couple of times. It's slightly too dark for my TV. I did have it set right in the options for the gamma for my TV, but it was coming through quite bright, so I've dropped it a couple of notches. But it's very, very dark on some of the night maps, so I may end up putting it back. Anyway, 51-70, lower glacis, sides and rear of the turret, pretty solid, all one way. And again, parts of the gun mantle, the side of the gun mount in there. 71-90, this is your front, your machine gun port, the whole upper glacis, the turret cheeks, which if this is using its gun depression and just showing its turret over a ridge, you want to be trying to hit just either side of the gun mantle on the turret there. It's only 76mm, and there's a good chance that you'd be able to pen it if you're struggling to hit the commander's hatches or whatever. That's where you want to be going, the sort of turret cheek just either side of that gun mantle. You've also got that bit just underneath the gun as well. I'm not sure what that is. It's like a bit of a bumpy, lumpy thing on the yeah, very technical. Just at the top of the upper glacis where it joins the upper deck. 91-120, the front of that lumpy bumpy bit. Yep. Some more strips around the gun mantle, so it's getting a bit stronger as it gets towards the middle of the gun mantle. 121-160. I know, yeah, I did say 76 is the front of the turret, but as you can see, it's got that sort of surprise up its sleeve. And then as we get a bit closer towards the centre, you've got 161-190, and then 191-230. Now, it could just be 191. Yeah, it could just be. Or it could be 230, but that is a very, very solid gun mantle for a medium tank that's sort of the rest of it, so it is fairly lightly armoured. And when you are using that gun depression over a ridgeline, you really do just increase the chances of just absorbing and bouncing shots off that very strong gun mantle. So this is very good on ridgelines, but you can't stay there because they will just hit your turret either side and pen. Anyway, I think that's about it really. If you are struggling to pen the hull, if you're in something sort of lower tiered and you can't quite hit the lower glacis, go for the machine gun port, because even though it's 76, it is flatter than the rest of it. It doesn't have much of an angle to it, but it will increase the armour slightly. So yeah, if you're in the lower tier struggling to pen, try for the machine gun port if you can't get to the commander's hatches, etc. But yeah, use this on ridge lines, and that gun mantle can bounce quite a few shots. But anyway, enough of me rambling on. Let's get into the replays and see how it actually handles. Right, so here we are for the first of the replays. I've used basically one sort of average match, and then I've used one quite fairly decent match to kind of show you, this was sort of an average when I was kind of figuring it out. And in the next match, you can see that I've sort of got to grips with it a little bit more, not quite fully. But it was just, what it is. Like I say, I've played 10 matches in this, but personally, I quite like it. I can't say, I'm not going to say to you that you should buy it, you shouldn't buy it, etc. I'm just going to try and show you what it's like, tell you what it's like, show you what it can do, and it's up to you to then make up your own mind. But yeah, personally, I quite like this tank, but it did take me a couple of games just to figure it out, see what it could and couldn't take, what it could and couldn't do. In the garage, that gun mantle looks very strong, but obviously, trying to put that to the test. Did get my turret cheeks penned once or twice in a couple of matches. But hopefully, like I say, this is an average one. The next one's a decent one, and it'll give you an idea of what it, what it sort of normally performs like, and then what it can perform like, or what it can be capable of. And I'm sure that there'll be people out there doing much better in it than me as well. But anyway, Tier 9 match. It's a small map, and this is a sort of support medium really, and quite a good one with the good terrain resistances. It can get around the map quite quickly. You'll slow down a bit on inclines because the power to weight ratio is not too bad, but it's not as good as like the normal Pershing, for instance. But with the terrain resistances, once you actually get up to speed, you tend to keep at that speed on fairly level ground, no matter sort of what kind of terrain you're going through. I mean, going through rivers, it doesn't really drop much speed at all. And when I was coming across these, I saw just quite how nippy it was. Now, my initial intention was to try and use the gun depression and the tough gun mantle to put some shots in over that centre hill. But it was getting a bit, getting a bit dodgy up there because there's some enemy tanks in the town shooting across, and they weren't spotted because of obviously the buildings, the fences, the trees, etc. in between us and them. They were definitely within spotting range, but I just could not see them, and I didn't fancy taking any hits in the side. One guy's already been taken out by shots from the town, so I've pulled back. I think there's a Centurion covering the medium, covering the middle, but he's just been taken out, and I don't know if that was from the town. I was hoping to get through here and spot these guys before they did any more damage. However, couldn't quite get through here in time, and now I am in this position. I'm not sure, it could have possibly been that T-54 was one of them, but the other ones seem to be preoccupied at the moment. But hopefully I can get round here and get some damage done myself, get a hit on the Waffenträger Panzer IV, and I'm going to pull back slightly. I'm not going to be able to bounce from this IS, not at this range, definitely not. So I'm just going to have to try and outshoot him, but unfortunately T-30's shown up. I don't know where that one went, and I was trying to pull back a bit, in vain really. So I'm going to get a shot in on him, and I'm going to just try and outdo him with rate of fire and try and keep moving and just throw his shots off. But unfortunately it's not working at all. But again, this was maybe the third game I'd done in it, and it kind of shows you that, you can brawl with some tanks, against some tanks in this. It doesn't really show you anything, it just shows you that I put myself in a stupid position. That's about it really. But anyway, managed to take the pressure off in the town, and between us down there we've sort of won it, and now we can push through the other side. I was hoping that I'd go through the wall and hit him, and it did. But I'm on low health now, 302. There's a couple of things left that could one-shot me, so I'm going to take it a bit more cautiously. Should have stopped and aimed that one really, but then again, I was spotted and he's kind of looking in my direction. But luckily luckily for me, somebody ammo-racked him. And now, am I going to get any more damage done on what's left? There's a charioteer. There's a heavy, I want to say it's an E75, but I could be wrong on that one. I'm not sure why I haven't checked. I was just keeping an eye out to see if he was cropping up down there, and oh no, there he is. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure where he was at that point, I think, or I was just looking for somewhere to cross the river possibly. But as you can see there, as I came through the river, it didn't really drop down too much in speed. It was only as I came up the incline on the other side of it that it did. But with the coated optics and the 390 metre view range and situational awareness starting to be built up, I've come out of that, like I say, a bit of an average one, 1300 amount damage and about 1400 assisted. But that was about the third match I played, and I'd say up until I decided to try and go toe to toe with the IS, I've played it a bit cautiously maybe. But yeah, that's sort of, for the first 8 or 9 games, that was, the average, around 13 to 1800 damage and anywhere between 500 to 1500 assisted as well, and that was sort of the average that I was pulling out with this, roughly, apart from one match where I just got, I think it was the first one, where I pushed a bit too far forward and got absolutely punished for it. Now, this one, it's a tier 8 match, so it's fairly nice matchmaking. You've still got to be careful, obviously. You've not got the best army. You can't be as aggressive as you could be in, say, the Pershing. And, obviously, the comparisons there between this, the T233 and the Pershing, because they're all evolutions. Or, well, this is an evolution of the T233, the Pershing was an evolution of this, etc. Or that's how I understand it anyway. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. Now, I've decided to push for the hill, and I don't normally come up here. Those of you familiar with the channel will probably know that I don't tend to come up this way, but I thought with this I'm going to. I've got the speed to get across here, and I've got across here fairly early. I've got the good gun depression and strong gun mantle to hopefully sort of work a ridge here, or work one of the slopes, and if anything comes across I can hopefully do alright against them. I was kind of counting on a bit more backup though. I have got a heavy that's come with me, I think it's a KB3, and I will be pretty glad of that guy by the end of the match, and yeah, you'll see why shortly. Now, I've got a shot on the Kaiju. That one, I didn't aim it properly, and I don't know if I tracked him, no? I don't know, but anyway, regardless of that, I do take a hit from a Tiger 131 that's come up the other side of the hill, and tried to get a shot in on the M51, but really just badly aimed by myself, and it goes flying over his head. Now, I've got to keep an eye on the Tiger 131. I don't want him to get too close, and I don't want to be spotted and take hits from my right hand side. Now, I've not quite got the gun depression to use that bit there, but hopefully if I move across I can, and there's the shots coming in from the right hand side. That's what I didn't want, and I really do push my luck and put another shot in against the 360H, and I really shouldn't have done that. I should have pulled back much sooner. And again, it's nice to watch this and learn from your own mistakes. Next time I'll pull back sooner, but I'm doing it now, and the 360H, well, I think he thinks that I'm completely on my own, and that's not quite the case. So he's charging me down. I'm not going to let him ram me at full speed or go into him, because obviously that will do more damage to me and I will probably die. So I'm going to try backing up to try and reduce the damage when he did ram me, which it did, and then thankfully the KB3 saves my arse, and then I take a hit from Tiger 131, and that's definitely must have been a mercy roll, and it's left me on 4 health. But luckily, because the 360H YOLO'd at me and tried to ram me to death or whatever, I've now got a handy wreck to hide behind. But there's a few bushes in between me and the Tiger 131, so well, yeah, I just can't quite spot him at the minute. There he is. That was fortunate. That looked like it hit the gun mantle, because that's all I'm trying to give him to shoot at. Now, thankfully for me, this guy never realised that if he just loaded an HE, he would have killed me. I've got a feeling that he probably doesn't carry any. I've got a bad habit of not carrying any HE rounds on any, hardly any of my tanks. I've got the odd one with them, but that's about it. And I really ought to just put 1 or 2 on for situations like that. Where you've got a tank that you just can't quite pen, but he's only on 2 or 3 health. Just pop an HE at him, splash damage, boom, he's going back to the garage. Now, yeah, trying to pull forwards to spot 131. I get spotted and have something pointing at me, but thankfully, again, the KV3 looked to be in between us, and he takes out Tiger 131 before he can be any more trouble to me. So, not a quick thanks, but an affirmative, because I was quite happy that he'd done that. and that it actually saved my backside twice. So now it's looking pretty even. In fact, it is even from what I can see on the scores. The enemy team just pull one back, and my plan here was to try and get up and over here. Once I'd got up on top of the hill, I knew I was going to speed up and I could get down the other side and across pretty quickly and try and go for Artie, but I make the decision to stop in the middle and try and get some shots in at these guys. And looking back, I kind of wish I hadn't, and you'll see why. You'll see why at the end, but I kind of wish I hadn't done this, and I kind of wish I'd have carried straight on, left those guys, and gone and done what I was planning on doing, which was to get down to the enemy cap and take out Artie. Like I said before, that takes the pressure off any of our guys, because they're not going to have an Artie shell dropping down on top of them, and it will kind of take the pressure off me a bit, because I'm not going to have an Artie shell just dropping anywhere near me and sending me back to the garage. Because, well, let's face it, at the minute an artillery could probably just look at me and my tank would explode. Now I've got over the other side, picked up speed. This is what I'm saying about this with the terrain resistances. Its top speed is 55, and you can see along here, you know, I'm sort of going between 53 and 55 kilometers an hour, and you have enough speed just to get up and over. And even like an incline, you know, a small railway bank like that wouldn't really slow you down that much. Now there's one of the Artie. There he is. I don't think I'm going to have enough to one-shot him. And indeed I don't. But one more should do it. And it's got, you know, decent rate of fire on it. And that's one of the Artie gone. Now, unfortunately, if you notice the team indicator at the top of the screen, it's kind of, well, dwindled slightly on our side. And I was hoping that those TDs and, you know, the other guys down there might be able to at least hold them off. But, and again, if I'd have not stopped on top of the hill, this might have gone differently. I could have got down here sooner, taken out Artie, and maybe gone and provided a bit more support and backup for the TDs sooner. But these things happen. You know, I thought I could help out by getting shots in across in the middle, maybe get a few hits in, take them out, and help that way, but unfortunately that didn't work. Couldn't really get any shots in. I think I got one hit on the Indian Panzer and that was it. So yeah, kind of a waste of time. But again, you know, you don't know in the middle of a game. You just don't know. That was, you know, seemed to be the right thing to do. But looking back afterwards, if I'd have just carried on, maybe this could have turned out differently, because at the minute there is me on 4 health and a KV3 on the other side of the map, and 2 captors in base, 3 captors in base. So yeah, it's not going to take long to cap. Luckily I have a good view range. I've got coated optics on. I've got maybe a 60% situational awareness, you know, all adding on to that 390 base view range. There's one of the guys. If I can just get one bit of hit on him, that's taking the pressure off. Where are the others? And that's when I start moving forwards, try and spot them, try to take out the KV4, because you know, I was hoping it might have just taken off another couple, but it didn't. There they are, and even though I get a shot on the IS, it is far too late on console. You don't get that sort of 5 seconds that you used to on PC. I don't know if you still do. You got a couple of seconds after it got to 100. But alas, it was a loss. But quite a decent one nonetheless. First class mastery and just over 3,200 of my own damage, 622 assisted, and 1,280 blocked. So yeah, not a bad round. Quite happy with that one. And personally, I think that's quite a nice little tier 8 medium. But you know, it's not my money that's going to be forking out for it. It's going to be your own, so it's up to you whether you want to get it or not. But this is definitely one that's made it onto my to buy list. So there you go, the Vengeance T25. I hope you've enjoyed that video. I hope it's been informative, and maybe it allowed you to make your mind up as to whether you'd like to pick this one up or give it a miss. Don't forget, it doesn't have a particularly high XP bonus, but it does have that high crew XP bonus on it as well, so it will make quite a decent crew trainer. But there you go. Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow with another video. So until then, take care out there, and I will catch you next time. See you later.